Hey everyone, welcome back. So in this episode, originally I was planning on setting up the vertex buffer so we could start passing input into the engine, but I made a few small changes to the swap chain and it ended up being a little bit more complex than I expected, so most of this episode is going to be refactoring the code, moving the swap chain into its own class, and then getting rid of the VDeleter class so that we can have things be a little bit more controlled. And then there's going to be a little bit of changing how the swap chain is handled in case the window gets resized. So let's go ahead and get right into that. So first off, let's go ahead and get the swap chain out of here. So we need to make a new class over here in PV Engine. Come on. We're going to go ahead and add a class. Great. And we're going to go ahead and name this PV swap chain. So this is going to handle, well, currently not all of it, but the majority of the swap chain functionality, and then we might move a few more things over to that later on. Alright, so we have both our swap chains. Now we need to put these inside the Planet Vulkan namespace. Let me just make sure I get it exactly like the other ones. PV Engine, okay. So we're going to drop those right here. Brackets, so everything's contained, and then we need one of those for the header file as well. So there we go. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so let's see what functions we need to put into here. So over here in planetvulkan.h, we had the where was it? The swap chain support details. We're going to need that in our swap chain class now. So we're going to just move that over, and we'll just drop it right at the top here. That looks like a good spot for it. Now, what else do we need? We're going to need a create function. So void create. Oh, didn't mean to drop down like that. And what else are we going to need? We should have a cleanup function for getting rid of the swap chain. And let's take a look at some stuff over here in planetvulkan.h. There's a bunch of things we're going to need to pull over. So create image views. Create swap chain is actually just going to be our create function. So we can just take that, and I'm just going to comment it out for now, just to avoid any confusion. We'll come back and actually remove that later. So let's see what else we need. We're going to need a lot of the swap chain support stuff. So we need query swap chain support. We're going to need to choose all these features of it. So just grab all that, move back over here, drop it in. Okay, that looks good. And what else do we need? The frame buffers. Where's create frame buffers? Here we go. Because those are directly used by the swap chain. And I think we need one more thing. Yes, we need the create image views. That's going to be necessary as well. So hop back over here. And we can just put it right beneath this. There we go. Create image views. Okay, so now that we've got those, we need to bring over all of our private variables that are going to be used within this. So make a private section, and let's jump back over to planetvulkan.h again. And what do we need? Whole bunch of stuff getting pulled over here. So we're going to need the swap chain images, swap chain image views. That's all that we have in that little section. What else? The frame buffers. Well, here, we'll just grab that first. Frame buffers. The image format and swap chain extent. And at some point within all these functions, we're going to need to reference the logical device. So we're going to pass that in later, but I'm just going to make a const vk device pointer, and that'll point to our logical device. I'm just going to call it device. Okay, cool. So now that we have these, we should grab all of their function definitions and pull those over to the CPP files. So let's hop back over here. I'm going to leave these for the moment just because we're still going to need to call them, just call them in a different way. So we'll come back to that. All these errors are actually going to help us track down what we need. So what do we have here? Nope, that's rate device suitability. Okay, so we have create swap chain. Okay. And we have create image views. Create. Well, we'll leave the render pass. Let's bring these over. Not the most exciting thing to watch, but it's all necessary. Pipeline. Shader module. Here we go. Frame buffers. Grab that. Command buffers. Semaphores. Draw frame. Find queue families. Extension support. Here we go. Query swap chain support. Surface format. Present mode. This is all the stuff we need. Swap extent. Great. And the nice thing is we're pulling these all out. It's going to really clean up the Planet Vulkan CPP file. It won't be a giant mishmash of code anymore. Alright, so before we go too much further, all of these scopes are wrong because they all say Planet Vulkan and we're now in PV swap chain. So let's go ahead and switch all those up, because we're going to get a lot of errors if we don't. Okay. Much better. And some of the names are wrong because, for instance, create is create swap chain. So I'm going to go over here and rename that to create. There we go. And actually, you know, there's one thing we still haven't done that we really should have done right from the start. We haven't included Vulkan in here, so I'm going to go ahead and include Vulkan / Vulkan.h. That should fix a lot of these errors we're getting. Good. And we need vector, so we're going to go ahead and include that too. That's looking much better. And we are going to need to get rid of this VDeleter, so you know what, why don't we try to tackle that right now. So the whole point of using VDeleter was so that everything was cleaned up properly. So since we're not going to have that to rely on anymore, we're going to need to create this cleanup function. So what? I don't think we started to set that up, did we? No, we didn't. Good. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab cleanup here, drop it right underneath the create function. There we go. Let's give it the right scope. So now anytime we pull a destroy function out, we need to put it in this cleanup function so that it actually has something to call. So we'll hop over here to pvswapchain.h, and the swap chain itself doesn't need a VDeleter. It's just going to be a vk swap chain khr, and we can get rid of all this. But don't forget, we're going to need that vk destroy swap chain khr. So hop back over to the CPP, and at the bottom of cleanup, we're going to call vk destroy swap chain khr, and we're going to need to pass in the device, which we haven't assigned yet, but we're going to eventually we're going to fill out this vk device pointer with a reference to the logical device. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the object pointed to by device. And then we're also going to pass in that delete function, which is going to be, oh no, I'm sorry, we're going to pass in the swap chain. And then for pallocator, we're just going to do vk null handle. Something there looks wrong. What did I do wrong? Probably just spelled swap chain wrong. Yep, there we go. Okay. That was a silly mistake. So we also need to fix up this VDeleter for the image views and for the frame buffers. So all we're going to do is just going to pull out that whole VDeleter section. So now it's just a vector of image views. This one's just a vector of frame buffers. And we're going to need to delete those as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over here to the CPP, And in the cleanup, for the image views, I'm going to go ahead and just make a for loop to destroy them, because you have to destroy them one by one. You have to make sure that each one gets taken care of. We're just going to call vk destroy image view. Yep. And once again, pass in what's pointed to by device. The swap. You know what? Let me actually fill out the integer up here. So size t, I equals 0, I is less than swap chain image views. Where is it? There we go. Dot size I plus plus there we go. So now that we have that I value we can reference, we can just say swap chain image views. Where are you? There we go. At I. And then once again for the p allocator we'll say vk null handle. So now that'll iterate through, take care of each image view one by one. I totally forgot to put a semicolon there. Don't do that. And then this isn't the best way to do it, but for the moment I'm also going to add a separate function for cleanup frame buffers. Now I'm doing it this way because later on when I call cleanup for the swap chain from Planet Vulkan, the issue with that is that there's going to need to be some things that are cleaned up between cleaning up the frame buffers and cleaning up the image views. So there's probably a better way of setting this up, and I'll probably do that later on as I refactor more, but for now this is going to make things a little bit easier on me. So for the size, we don't want the swap chain image view size, we want the swap chain frame buffers dot size. And we still want the device. Once again, this is going to be frame buffers. And this function doesn't exist, so let's grab it and just drop it right underneath cleanup. Get rid of that. Okay. So the two of those will handle cleanup properly. You'll have to call them both separately, but we'll see how to do that in just a minute. Alright, so we've got that taken care of. Let's see what else we need to do here. So for the create, you know what, we're using cout, and we're using the errors, so we should probably have something to deal with that. Let's hop back over here. Include IOStream and include std accept. There, let's see if that fixed it. Good, okay. So there's some things we're going to need for creation. So if we look here, we need surface, we need physical device, we need logical device, and swap chain dot replace isn't going to work anymore for the create function. So let's go ahead and pass some things in. So we're going to pass in a constant vk device, which is going to be our logical device, a pointer to it. And we'll just call them the same thing so we don't have to replace them. vk physical device. Physical device. We need that surface. So const vk surface. That will be surface. And once again, that should be a pointer as well. And was there anything else that we're missing? Physical device. That might be all we need. So let's just take those, bring them over to the .h file as the parameters. Oh, it's because physical device is still being handled by a VDeleter. We should probably go over and take care of that. Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll come back to this. So let's hop over to Planet Vulkan stuff, and we'll work on that and then go back to the swap chain in a second. So right now everything in planetvulkan.cpp is being cleaned up automatically because it's part of VDeleter. So what we actually need is we need a cleanup function within this to call all the different just VK destroy functions and reference things in the swap chain because now it's a separate class. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop over to the .h file, and where is init Vulkan? Alright, so right underneath init Vulkan, we're also going to make a void cleanup Vulkan. Alright, grab that, copy it over, give it a scope. Alright, and we're going to need to clean up a whole bunch of stuff. And actually, I'm going to make a second cleanup function. This one can probably be private. We're going to make a void cleanup swap chain. Yeah, the reason for this is because there's, as you'll see near the end of the video, we're going to need to clean up the swap chain at times when we're not doing a complete cleanup of Vulkan. That's going to be when we're replacing the swap chain, which we'll get to in a minute. So, let's start by filling out cleanup swap chain, because that's actually the first thing we're going to call here in cleanup. We're going to clean up the swap chain. So down here, we have a whole bunch of things we need to call. So first off, we're going to call swap chain. Oh, actually, nothing is referencing the swap chain yet, is it? Can't do that yet. Here, because previously the swap chain was all being created internally, but since it's not anymore, we actually need a variable for the swap chain in the header file. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to where we had our swap chain. Where is it? You know what, I think I pulled it out of here when I moved it over into pv swapchain.h. So what we're going to do is we'll just put it right here underneath the display queue. So we're going to make a new pv swap chain pointer and call it swap chain. So we're creating a new instance of the pv swap chain object, and obviously we have to include that or it won't show up. So we just come up here, include pv swapchain.h. So good, that looks good. So now if I come over here, I should be able to reference that swap chain. And so right here in swap chain, create swap chain, we don't have that anymore. So we're going to declare a new pointer to swap chain, which we're just going to say swap chain equals new pv swap chain. And as most of you know, if we're calling new on a pointer, we're going to need to call delete on that. So up here in the destructor, I'm just going to say delete and delete swap chain, so we don't have memory leaks. Okay, so that will create a new instance of the swap chain class. It doesn't actually create the swap chain though, so we need to call swap chain arrow reference and then create. And then we have a bunch of things we need to pass in, so we'll do that in just a second. We also need to create the image views. So we do swap chain. Did that create the image views on its own, or did it have a separate one for that? No, it did have a separate one. Okay. Swap chain, create image views, and we need to create frame buffers. So swap chain, create frame buffers. There we go. Yeah, I'm just going to delete these. We don't need them anymore. It's pretty clear what's going on here. Okay, so now everything's being stored within that swap chain object, and right now create doesn't have the proper parameters, but we'll get to that in a second. So in cleanup swap chain, we're going to have to call all of the cleanup functions that we made. So we're going to go ahead and first we need to clean up the command buffers, but we don't actually want to delete those. We're just going to free them up in case we want to reuse them, which we will later. So we're just going to call vk free command buffers and pass in the logical device is it? Logical device is still being handled by VDeleter. Let's go ahead and take care of that now. So get rid of VDeleter, get rid of its destroy function. There we go. We're going to handle how that gets destroyed in a minute, but we need it immediately. So logical device. Still not working with me? Oh, cleanup swap chain does not have the proper scope. Usually I'm so good about that. Okay, there we go. So, free command buffers, pass in logical device, command pool, the command buffer count, which we're going to do a static cast to uint32 t, and pass in command buffers.size. There we go. And the last one is the p command buffers. We're going to pass in command buffers data. There we go. So that frees up all of the command buffers. Then we need to destroy the pipeline. So vk destroy pipeline. There we are. And pass in logical device, graphics pipeline, and vk null handle for the p allocator. We need one for the pipeline layout. And if I could spell, this would go a lot easier. And we need one for the render pass. So vk destroy render pass. And both of those are going to have logical device. It's all very similar setup. This needs the pipeline layout. This needs the render pass. And then they both need a vk null handle. So there we go. And the last thing we need to clean up is the swap chain itself. So, well, technically the swap chain and the image views, but that's what the cleanup function that we made does, if you remember. Wherever we put it. It does all the image views and then the swap chain itself. So swap chain, cleanup. Oh, and I didn't call the frame buffers. That's the first thing we needed to clean up. Sorry. So up here above the command buffers, we're going to call swap chain cleanup frame buffers. Okay, so that's the order everything needs to go to avoid freaking everything out. Alright, so now that we have this will clean up the swap chain in cleanup Vulkan, but we need to clean up everything else. So since everything was a VDeleter before, we need to get rid of that and then call all the cleanup functions so that everything doesn't fall apart. So let's just hop back in the .h, render pass, we're going to get rid of all these things. And we just need to make sure that we call all the proper destroy functions. So honestly, a lot of these we just handle, like the pipeline layout, the render pass. These should all be taken care of in that swap chain cleanup function. Lots of stuff here. But the nice thing is we won't have to worry about this VDeleter anymore after this, so. Okay, that's all those. Anything left? Oh, quite a few, yeah. Alright, any more? Did we really get them all? Looks like we did. Okay, so hopefully that took care of all of our weird VDeleter stuff. So now in the cleanup function, we're going to destroy the semaphores. So vk destroy semaphore. Alright, and we're actually going to need two of those, one for each. Actually, I'll fill out one and then copy it. It'll make things easier. So, logical device, the render finished semaphore, and VK null handle. Just skip the whole thing. And we also need one for the image available semaphore. Okay. Now we need to destroy the command pool, so VK destroy command pool. And I think I can just pass the same stuff from up above, or rather down below. Logical device, command pool, VK null handle. Alright, then VK destroy device. That's going to be the logical device. VK null handle. Destroy debug report callback ext. And then that's going to be the instance of Vulkan, the callback, and the VK null handle again. Then VK destroy surface KHR, instance surface VK null handle. Then VK destroy instance. Alright, that's going to be instance VK null handle. And then we can destroy the window, so glfw destroy window. And we're going to pass in the window object. Window object.window. And then we can call glfw terminate. And that should be everything we need to do to clean up successfully. Kind of messy, but it does the trick. Now that we have that cleanup function, we actually need to call it from somewhere. So what we're going to do, if you remember, we moved the game loop into Vulkan. So down here, we don't need to call glfw destroy window anymore because we're calling that in the cleanup. This is where we should actually be calling cleanup. So we just put in cleanup Vulkan, and that should take care of everything. We'll loop through all of the pull events and the draw frame, and then whenever the while loop exits because the window is closed, we wait until the logical device is idle, and then we do a full cleanup on everything, and that should clean up everything safely. Alright, now the one thing that we still haven't done is up here in swap chain create, we haven't passed in any of the variables it needs. So since we no longer have the VDeleter, we're going to need to start passing things with references. So we're going to go ahead and pass a reference to, well, let's see what it needed again. We need the logical device, and we need, I believe it's the physical device. Yeah. And we need the surface, so. Alright, and that should do the trick. And we have a ton of errors here. I'm guessing they're all, yeah. All these create functions that we did before, these aren't going to work anymore because since we were using VDeleter, we always called replace. And it's not going to be a replace anymore, it's going to be a reference. Because now we're referencing that exact object with a pointer. So we're just going to go down through all of these, and everything that says replace, we're going to delete the replace function and just pop on that reference indicator. We'll come back to that one. Let's see. And we'll have to come back to that too. A lot of these things are going to require that we make some getter functions over in our swap chain. Alright. I'll come back. Let's just worry about these replace functions right now. Graphics pipeline. think that should about do it for all the replace functions. But, I mean, as we were going through, you guys saw lots of other errors that we're having. So there's lots of things that we need to reference differently. So let's hop back over to pvSwapChain.h, and we're going to make some getter functions. So just drop down here, getters. Alright, there's a bunch of details in here we're going to need to be able to access. So first off, we need to be able to get the swap chain itself. So we're just going to make a vk swap chain khr. There it is. It's going to be a pointer, get swap chain. There we go. And that's just going to return a reference to swap chain. Alright. Next up, we need one for the image format. So vk format, pointer, get image format. And that's return reference to the image format. I'm not seeing it. Did I not bring that over? Oh, swap chain image format. There we go. Alright, we need one for the extent. So vk extent 2d, pointer, get extent. And that's going to return return a reference to the swap chain extent. Size t, get frame buffer size. And that'll return a reference. No, I'm sorry. We can just return swap chain frame buffers dot size. There we go. And last up, just to get the frame buffers, we're going to do vk frame buffer, pointer, get frame buffer. And we're going to have to pass in an index for that. So unsigned int index. And that will return a reference to the swap chain frame buffers at that index. Alright, with that I think we can go back over here to the CPP and start filling everything out. So this first error was a query swap chain support. We need swap chain support details. You know, actually this one shouldn't even be here. This one we could move over to the swap chain as well. So I'm going to grab that, bring it over to the swap chain. Oh, I did bring that over. Huh. Well then, actually we don't need that at all. We should just delete that. Cool. That's silly. Yeah, it's right there. Okay. Great. So we just get rid of that. Not an error anymore. What else have we got? Create render pass. We need the swap chain image format. So instead we're just going to say swap chain get image format. There we go. Did that work? We need to do a reference to. Sorry, not a reference. The object pointed to by that. Alright. This one, we'll come back to that because that's still not related exactly. Alright, this one we need the swap chain extent. So we're just going to say swap chain get extent. Width. And this one's going to be swap chain get extent height. There we go. And down here we're just going to say swap chain get extent. And it's the object pointed to by that. Alright, down here we have the swap chain frame buffers dot size. We're just going to do swap chain get frame buffer size. And that's handled. next up, this one is referencing an individual frame buffer, so we're just going to do swap chain get frame buffer, and that needs an index, or it should anyway. Yep. So we just pass in I, and once again we wanted the object pointed to by that. And just here we're going to go ahead and call swap chain get extent again. There we go. And last up, we just call swap chain. Oh, swap chain is probably lowercase. Yeah, there we go. Swap chain get swap chain. And I believe we need, yeah, there we go. Alright, so that does the trick. Looks like we have one more down here. Oh, just one more reference to the swap chain, so we're just going to do swap chain get, IntelliSense isn't working with me. There we go. And we want that to be the object. Perfect. Alright, so one last thing is right here. We have these shader modules. These we're just going to take the VDeleter off of as well. And we're going to need to call a VK destroy shader module on both of them at the end. So let's just go down there and drop them off before we forget. I can just copy and paste that. Alright. Come back to those in a second. Whoop, too far. So we do that. Destroy these. Put those semicolons back. Alright. And it looks like this create shader module function isn't going to work anymore, because I'm pretty sure, let's go to that real quick. Yeah, see, that's passing in a shader module, so that's just not going to work, because it's a VDeleter shader module. So we'll just go ahead, get rid of that completely. And since the shader module isn't something that we're going to need to have constantly available, we can make this real simple on ourselves. Instead of passing in one, we'll just create a new VK shader module to return. And then down here, we'll just create a new one. There we go. And that is what we will reference here. And then at the end, we'll just return that back to the calling function. So the only thing we have to do now is actually change the declaration of this function over in the .h file. Where is it? Create shader module. And we'll just give it that new one. Get rid of that. Give it a semicolon. And we're good. So now we just need to call these properly. So we just... Oh, why am I still getting an error around here? No, we'll come back. So we just come up here, create shader module, and now we only have to pass in the code for the vertex shader and the frag shader. Alright. What is giving me an error? Oh, it's the destroy, of course. So down here at the bottom, that's why I put them in, so we wouldn't miss them. We need to pass in the destroy for both shader modules, so we're going to go ahead and pass in the logical device for both. And then we need to pass in the respective shader. So we're going to go ahead and pass in vert shader module and frag shader module. And then it looks like we need a null handle for the p allocator again. So vk null handle, and do another one here, vk null handle. Alright, you know, I realized I made a mistake, caught a glance of it when I was adding in the shader module function here, but I realized that function I deleted earlier was not query swap chain support, it was rate device suitability. I just got confused because I was reading a section of it. So this is why it's really good to have source control. So I'm just going to hop over here to GitHub's website and go back to the scripts that I've already built. And I can just, let's do a quick search. Rate, device, and here it is. So now I can just grab this whole thing, Feels silly, but at least it's an easy fix. Just grab the whole thing, had it under get physical devices. We're just going to go right back here. Get physical devices. Where is it? Here we go. Just put it back right where I found it. Alright. Now it still has that error, but that is okay. We will fix that in a different way. So since query swap chain support is public over here in pvswapchain.h, I'm pretty sure we can just call it directly from the swap chain. Let me see if that seems to work okay. Let's just make sure our swap chain is actually initialized at this point. So let's see where we call rate device suitability. And that is right here in get physical devices. And we create the surface first. No, the swap chain is not created at that point. Okay, then we may need to restructure this a little bit. Okay, so I'm actually going to pull the query swap chain support out of pvswapchain. I don't think it's going to work out in here. Let's go back to planetvulkan.h. And do we still have it in here? We already took it out. That's fine. So we'll just put it right here. Right. And we're going to grab the swap chain support details again. Drop that in there. See how quickly we can get through all this. Grab this function. And we'll just drop that right there. Let's see how much damage that did. So this should be too bad. Put that back the way it was. I think this might actually work out just fine. Let's see what we can do here. So if we go to where are we? Okay, so pvswapchain, there's one call to swap chain support details, which is no longer going to work. So we'll just take this for the create call. We're just going to pass in a swap chain support, like that. And of course it doesn't recognize the swap chain support details because we moved that out. So this is, again, not a great way of doing things, but I'm going to go ahead and have a swap chain support details both in planetvulkan.h and in pvswapchain.h. That's something I'm definitely going to want to clear up later on, but as of now I think that'll fix our problem. So considering that, now that we have this swap chain support details being passed in, let me just add that into the header. Okay, so that's being passed in, and all we're going to need to do is call this when we call create. So we're just going to comment that out for a moment in case anything gets messed up. Hop back over to planetvulkan. And right up top here, it's going to complain that the create function is wrong. And we're just going to call that. It doesn't seem to be angry. I think we're okay there. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this then. Alright, and now we need to fix all these errors. And a lot of these are just more of the VDeleter issues, so we're just going to go down here, swap chain, we don't need to call replace anymore, we can just pass in a reference. Logical device is coming in through as an argument, so we're just going to say the object pointed to by logical device, here as well, here as well. Oh, something's still wrong up here. What doesn't it like? Oh, the surface. Surface is also coming through. That's an easy fix though. We're just going to go ahead and resize it to swap chain images.size. And then down here, do swap chain image views, reference, and the object pointed to by logical device. No, doesn't like that. Ooh, that's because nothing's actually storing that. Oh no, that's what it is. It's because we named it device within PD swap chain. We have that pointer to the logical device. We still need to do the object pointed to by it. And then swap chain frame buffers, we're going to do something similar. Size. Did we get the render pass? Doesn't look like it. We'll come back. So down here, swap chain frame buffers, reference, and what is pointed to by device. And a couple more errors down here. Alright, it looks like here we just didn't include the proper things. So we don't have the window, so we should probably pass in the window for this function. And we need to include windows, so include window.h. And then we also need that in choose swap extend, so we're just going to say window obj. There we go. Alright, so, too far. And we also need algorithm for these min and max, and since that's only in this function, I'm going to put it at the very top here in the CPP, not the .h, so include algorithm. That should have fixed it. We are good there. Something else still isn't quite right here. Let's see. Oh, okay, so for choose swap extent, we need to pass in that window, so we're going to do window obj, and we're going to need to pass that into the create function as well. So at the end here, I'm going to do, you know what, since we're calling swap chain support with a function, I'm going to put it before that. So window pointer window obj, and then of course this one down here will need to be the object pointed to by that pointer. Hop back over to CPP, and right before query swap chain support, we're just going to do a reference to window obj. It doesn't seem to like that. You know, I'm pretty sure I forgot to add that into the definition of it, or declaration rather. So we're just going to grab this here and copy it over right here. And that should get rid of all of our errors. Yep, that looks good. Alright, so just a couple more things. There's a lot to fix here. Alright, so in create frame buffers, we need to handle this render pass. So we should probably be passing a render pass into that. So vk render pass pointer render pass. There we go. This will be what's referenced by render pass. And we need to move this over to the create frame buffers function. So right down here, we just drop it in. And I believe that should fix all our errors. Let's, there's one more down here. It just appears to be an extra, yeah, just for some reason we have an extra bracket. Not sure where that came from, but that solves the problem. Alright, so no errors there, none here, and we got one more right up here. Where? Create frame buffers, there it is. So we're just going to pass in that render pass as a reference. Alright, and that does the trick. So we're almost done here. Now we just need to do a few things that are actually something progressing our project here, because so far everything just kind of does the same thing it already did. So let's build this real quick just to make sure we don't get any errors. And we are getting errors. Ooh, you know what? This is probably a pretty big one. I don't think I need swap chain support details here, because it's already declared in pvswapchain.h, and that's being included in Planet Vulkan, so it should get a reference to that anyway. That should take care of that. What else we got here? Left brace, unmatched. Looks like... yeah, it looks like we just missed a brace here for some reason. That might have been that one I deleted earlier. Let's try that now. Oh, one more error. Ooh. Alright, so if you remember, I modified the create shader module to return a shader module. It doesn't look like I actually assigned that to the one that we created, so let's go ahead and fix that. Making a lot of mistakes today. Frag shader module. Alright, and let's try it now. That's looking a lot better. Give it a run, see if we actually get any output. Hopefully we get our triangle and we don't get any crashes. We're still getting crashes. Device was a null pointer. So I went ahead and debugged what that null pointer device was, and once again, stupid mistake by me. If you remember, I made a VK device pointer in pvswapchain.h, never actually assigned that to anything. So right here in the pvswapchain create, at the very beginning, we just want to say device equals logical device. That should be the fix, so let's see what we get now. Looking good. Run that. And there is our triangle. That feels good. I was a little concerned. So, one thing I do want to point out, though, is right now we are unable to resize this window. Okay? Now that's because of something that we set up earlier. Let me close this. Ooh, actually, we're still getting errors. I should probably handle that. Alright, turns out this one was another stupid mistake, and gotta tell you, this is why you don't copy and paste. If you remember, I copied everything from cleanup to cleanup frame buffers, but I'm calling VK destroy image view, and I need to be calling VK destroy frame buffers. Sorry, frame buffer. There we are. So, once again, terrible mistake. Sorry about that. But just, lesson everyone else. Watch your copy and paste. Alright, hopefully we don't get any errors now. Oh, much better. Okay, so, didn't need to do that. So, like I said, we're unable to resize the windows, and that's because over here in window.cpp, we said glfw window hint resizable is false. So let's make that true. And now if we run this again, I want you to watch what happens if we resize the window. So here's our window, and if we resize it, you just lose some of your image, which is not really what we want. That's not how our window should behave. What should happen is it should resize everything within the window to match the new size. So we're going to try and fix that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Planet Vulkan, and we're going to make a new function to initialize the window, because before we're just calling a create function. So we're going to do void init window. Alright, we're going to grab that, bring it over to the CPP, and then right before, where is it? Create instance, I went too far. Right before create instance, we're going to go ahead and drop init window right there. And we're going to move the window obj.create out of there and replace it with init window. Because it's going to call that, but it's also going to call some other things in the process. So we just drop that there. Now what we are going to do... Ooh, why doesn't it like that? Oh, not part of the proper scope. My brain is somewhere else today. There we go. So, now that we have that, we just go ahead and fill it out. So what we're going to do is we're also going to add in another function, is glfw set window user pointer. And that's assigning a reference to, well, it's pointing to a particular class based upon the window. So we're going to pass in window object window, and we're going to reference this, which is the Planet Vulkan class. And then we're also going to say it's glfw set window size callback, which will call a particular function when a particular window object is resized. So once again, we pass in window object dot window, and we don't have a function yet, so actually let's go take care of that and then we'll come back. So we're going to hop over here into the private section, and we're going to make of planet Vulkan.h, by the way, and we will make a new static void on window resized, and that's going to take a glfw window pointer, which is window. I spelled that wrong. Lowercase w. And then an int width and an int height. Alright, inside we're going to double check if width or height is 0. Let's make that a little prettier. And then we just return. And then we're going to do planet Vulkan pointer engine equals reinterpret cast, and we're going to cast what we receive to a planet Vulkan pointer. And what we're going to receive is going to be glfw get window user pointer. And we'll just pass in window object dot window. Oh, that doesn't look right. Actually, that's my mistake, because we're passing in the window as a parameter, so we don't actually need window object. Alright, so that gets passed in, and then we're going to call engine. Oh, I haven't made the function for this yet. The whole reason we're doing all of this is that the swap chain that we've created, anytime the window gets resized, it no longer matches, so we actually have to recreate the swap chain. So we're going to make a function for that as well. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to make void recreate swap chain. Let's get the scope for that. And we'll bring that back over here. I'll just drop it right here where the create swap chain used to be. And again, this kind of thing we could maybe eventually move over to the swap chain object as well, but right now it's going to be calling some things that aren't inside that. So inside recreate swap chain, where do we do cleanup? It's going to be similar to that here. So cleanup swap chain. Actually, no, we need to call cleanup swap chain. So cleanup swap chain first, make sure that nothing is messed up. And we can't clean it up if it's still doing things. So we need to call vk device wait idle first. And we're waiting on the logical device. So we wait, we clean up the swap chain, and now we need to recreate everything. So where's create swap chain? That should be up here. So we're going to need that. Actually, we don't really need here. We'll just get this create function here. So swap chain create, pass in everything we need. Then we need to create the render pass. And all of these things that we're recreating were destroyed when we ran the cleanup. So create render pass, create graphics pipeline, create frame buffers, and what do we need for that? It was a reference to the logical device and the reference to the render pass. And oh, no, it doesn't like that. Sorry, we didn't need the logical device. That's stored. Just the render pass. And then we need to call create command buffers. And that should be everything we need to rebuild our swap chain with the proper dimensions. So now we hop back over here, and in that function we were making for onWindow resized, we're just going to call engine recreate swap chain. And I think that might be everything we need. It's possible I'm forgetting something, but let's rebuild this, see if we get any errors, see if I broke anything. And if I didn't, let's see if we can actually, resize the window. So I'm missing something here. Callback. Right, we didn't finish filling this out. So this is where we assign a particular function to the window being resized, and we're just going to use onWindow resized. And we need to actually give a scope for it since it's static. Let's try this now. Alright, that looks pretty good to me. Let's run it. We have our triangle, and let's see what happens if we decide to resize it. Ooh, that's bad. What happened there? Alright, once again, another stupid mistake. But I think what's going on here is nothing ever actually calls create image views. Like, if you remember when I did the cleanup, I cleaned up the image views and then the swap chain. I was planning on doing something similar with the create function where it creates the swap chain and then the image views, but I never actually called create image views. So at the very bottom of this create function in PV swap chain, you need to call create image views. Now the reason that was hard to track down is because over here in planetvulkan.cpp during the initialization, I was calling create image views. So it only got called once and wasn't called again if the swap chain was recreated. So I think that may finally be our issue. Let's see if we can get this thing to run. Alright, so we have our triangle. Hopefully no crash. Watch, we bring this down. Resizes nicely. Let's see if we close it. And there is no crash. So everything works perfectly. That was quite a ride. Sorry about that, guys. Anyways, so that's all for this episode. We've managed to refactor quite a bit, actually. We've got the swap chain out of there. Things are a little messy, but the good news is VDeleter is completely removed. In fact, we can probably just remove that from... You know what? I'm not going to do that just in case it breaks something. I'll do that in the next video, but hopefully in the next one we can get into building the vertex buffers for this. So, thanks for watching.